I recently played Silent Hill 3 for the first time. I immediately knew I wanted to write about it, so I went back through it a second time to capture footage. I then spent a few days contemplating the nature of what exactly my video would be. Trying to say anything even remotely new about a game as iconic and as beloved as Silent Hill 3 is an impossible task. The one thing I kept coming back to was how the game made me feel. The textures and atmosphere of each area. You see, Silent Hill 3 is an incredibly beautiful game. It might not be as pretty or as ethereal as its predecessor, but it is beautiful. Violent, abrasive, noisy, yes, but part of me wants to exist in that place forever. And that word I used a second ago, texture, that word became a small obsession of mine. The texture, the remarkable texture of Silent Hill 3. That's what I want to talk about in this video.
What a nightmare.
Take the opening level, for example, the shopping center. This is probably my favorite instance of texture in the entire game. The first 5 or so minutes in particular create an incredible dreamlike sensation. You play as a girl named Heather after she wakes up in a mall. She walks through a small section of the place, and you can faintly hear what sounds like dozens of people talking and walking around nearby. But when you finally gain control, the hallways are all emptied out, and you're completely alone. It gives this illusion of proximity to the outside world, as if there's a whole crowd of people just beyond where the player can access. But, obviously, they aren't real. You're not going to find any hidden NPCs tucked away if you no-clip through the wall, and once the MP3 file stops playing, they'll all disappear forever. Or, more accurately, they'll stop trying to convince you that they ever existed at all. This kind of dissociation is unique to video games as a medium. Everything that happens around the player is a facsimile, basically just a cardboard cutout held up by strings. This actually works really well in a horror game, because the developers want you to feel the same isolation as the protagonist is feeling. Everything kind of operates within layers, and each layer is a combination of visuals and sounds. When the illusion is purposefully disrupted like it is in Silent Hill 3, the player inevitably starts to feel uncomfortable. I hate to use this word, but it's all very liminal. I also like how the music plays over the dialogue during the opening cutscene.
I'm a detective.
A detective? Really?
David Lynch does this a lot in Twin Peaks, and it's always fascinated me in a way I struggle to articulate. Something about the way it crowds the scene, intruding on the characters' voices and nearly drowning out whatever they have to say. The music itself contributes to the feel as well. The song that plays in this particular sequence is called End of Small Sanctuary. It's a wonderful song, and is, for my money, among the best in the series. It reminds me a lot, actually, of the music on Bowery Electric's 1996 album, Beat. Power lines and highways and small towns and things like that. It's all very Silent Hill. The game doesn't stay this melancholy forever, though. Like I said, Silent Hill 3 is violent and loud. It focuses much more on the nightmarish otherworld than the second game, and once you step back into the mall, the illusion of normalcy is shattered. The music stops, and you enter a new part of the mall where all the stores are closed and the lights are turned off. You see a monster murdering a woman, and even then, by the time you get there, she's dead. The only human thing in the room is Heather. I actually want to talk a little bit about the level design in the shopping center. One of the first things you'll notice about it is its size. It's by far the largest and most dense area in the first 3 games. The enterable rooms are far more unique and more memorable than, say, the rooms in the Woodside Apartments were. And it stands at 3 stories tall, making it a very overwhelming introduction to the game. One could argue, and be correct in arguing, that the disorienting nature of the shopping center is supposed to represent Heather's anxiety. She is, after all, a teenage girl, and a traumatized teenage girl at that. The symbolism of the mall, this massive, crowded monolith of socialization, contorting and devolving into a horrific, bloody labyrinth, isn't lost on me. But I do think it's a little much. On your first playthrough, you'll probably miss most of the details since you'll be running from the endless clusters of enemies. Everything sort of gets mixed up into a blur, which is a shame since it's such a gray area. Once you kill the main boss of the area, you can explore the mall again after having been returned to its normal state. As far as I can tell, there's nothing you can really do there, but I like that the option to walk around is given to the player. I especially like this one specific nook to the side of the main hall where the payphones are. The way it's lit up makes it feel so real. It's these little halls and unassuming spots that make games so interesting as a medium. If this wasn't in the game, it would still be considered a masterpiece, but for whatever reason, it captured my attention. After this, you go down into the subway station. And in many ways, it's the opposite of the mall. The enemies are few and far between, and pretty much every room or corridor looks identical. It's empty, and it shouldn't be. It should be crowded and loud and full of people running around, carrying things and bumping into each other, and so on and so forth. I actually love this level, which apparently is a hot take going off of what the internet has to say. It's a remarkably normal looking place by Silent Hill standards. At no point do the walls turn red, the ground never becomes fleshy and squishy, the music never really kicks in. For the most part, it's a quiet and relatable sequence. The first half of the game feels this way, actually. Your only motivation is to get home, and Heather never really gets sidetracked or pulled into another realm that isn't just a scarier version of a pre-existing building. She takes the wrong train, there's construction blocking the road she usually walks down to get to her apartment. It's basically a series of inconveniences we've all had to deal with at some point, just exaggerated and made into something grotesque. It reminds me of the film After Hours, where a man gets stuck in Soho and faces increasingly absurd roadblocks as he attempts to get back home.
I'll probably get blamed for that.
The subway station is also a beautiful looking area in general. The lights are on, but all the hallways stretch out so far that they end up cloaked in shadows regardless. Like I said earlier, there's not really any music there either. The only sounds you'll be hearing are Heather's breathing and her footsteps echoing throughout the subterranean complex. There's one room in particular that I kept coming back to in my head after I'd beaten the game. In the center of the subway station, there's a wide open section with maybe a dozen or so pillars. They're arranged evenly, and the shadows cast by each of them intersect with the others. You can't see the end of the room from where you enter either. It just feels amazing to walk through and think about. It's so normal? I could probably find this exact room in my local transit station, if my town cared enough about public transportation, that is. When you remove all the people from an ordinary space like this, you start to realize how odd it looks. The infrastructure is so angular and neatly laid out. It's kind of fascinating in a way that's hard to explain. There's also a dead body that you could find down a staircase. Something that seems so typical for a horror game like Silent Hill that even Heather comments on it. But when you actually think about it, there aren't very many dead bodies in Silent Hill 3. I mean, there's plenty of strange, fleshy corpses, all strung up and contorted inside cages that are floating in the void. But these aren't really dead people, are they? They never existed. They don't look human at all. The only person trapped in this nightmare is usually the protagonist. In fact, this dead, seemingly homeless man is perhaps the closest you ever get to another completely normal person in the entire game. The other human characters are all mixed up in the plot in some way. This was just an unlucky guy from the looks of things. When I was a kid, like 5 or 6 I think, my grandma would take me to the office building where she worked. I remember getting lost in the hallways very often. They seemed to go on forever. Now I know that I was just very small, and everything around me looked bigger because of that. But in my memories, it doesn't matter. Those halls are still endless. I remember the ground being carpeted and my footsteps being silent. I remember the old ladies who worked there, letting me use their iPads to play games. I remember all of these sensations and interactions, but I don't remember what the office building was actually for. It was just a place where old people worked. I'm saying all of this because the Hilltop Center, the fourth main area in Silent Hill 3, reminded me a lot of those old trips to my grandma's workplace. You see, I don't really understand what the Hilltop Center is. I mean, I know what it is. It's a building with office spaces on each floor where people do stuff, I guess. But I didn't really grasp that until my second playthrough. Outside of those trips from my childhood, I've never stepped foot in an office building. I never really considered how they were structured or designed or what purpose they serve. Whenever you see one in a film, it's typically less of an actual place and more of a gray, faceless entity. A generic representation of dull bureaucracy that the protagonist must break free of. In Silent Hill 3, however, it's just another place Heather passes through on her journey towards home. There's a dance studio, a law firm, an art gallery, each with different interiors. It's kind of like a mall, but for old people. A water dispenser in place of a food court, an elevator in place of an escalator. Of course, this carries thematic weight as well. It is Silent Hill after all. And this entry is, at its core, a story of maturing, of coming of age. It makes sense that her next destination after the shopping mall would be its grown-up, more depressing counterpart. When you transition into the other world, the complex becomes filled with horrific imagery, evocative of birth and of children. One of the most striking images in the entire game is this. A human-like creature of some sort holding a baby over a bottomless pit. Next to this site is a wheelchair with another baby sitting inside. Apparently this creature is called... Now, I don't know how to say that word. Apparently this creature is called Valtiel. I didn't realize this at first, but it's the same creature that drags Heather's corpse away during certain game over screens, implying that he is going to use her body to give birth to God even after her death. He is presumably without autonomy, a being who exists solely to aid in reproduction for the cult. He's not a caretaker either. That implies some sort of personal attachment or ability to care at all. He is what they want Heather to be, a body dangling over a pit, carrying God. Eventually, Heather does make her way back home, and this is kind of where I check out if I'm being honest. The apartment scene itself is great, so is the boss fight on the rooftop, but I find myself less interested in everything after this point. You go to Silent Hill after this, and the next area is the hospital. The same hospital from the second game. My least favorite area from the second game. I'm not trying to say the game runs out of interesting ideas or textures or anything like that. It's just that I'm less drawn to it. I don't really want to talk about the church, so I'm not going to. At the start of this video, I mentioned how I'd been struggling to come up with a good topic to write about. And to be honest, I still don't really know what this video is about. What quantifies something as a texture in this context? There's no language that'll ever express or get across what I mean when I say a certain hallway makes me feel a certain way. But you can feel Silent Hill 3. You can run your hands over its coarse surface and breathe in its air. I felt it long before I'd ever played the game, from videos I'd seen as a child. Videos like the one I'm making right now. If you felt it as well, to any degree, I urge you, no, beg you, to play the game for yourself. Texture is the one facet of art that can never be explained away, can never be redundant, can never be impersonal. The mechanics of why you feel what you feel, the art direction or the intentional music choices, these will never be as important as how you feel it.